So good evening, everyone. As I said before, so Hands Across the Sea is the general theme that I'm going with both for this presentation for the conference, given the fact that I am from the States, I'm in the UK, and what better way to phrase that connection than literally hands across the sea. Any comments that you have for this presentation would be greatly appreciated as I continue to prepare for the conference presentation that is coming up soon. But that for later. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I don't know who doesn't know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Javier Fernandez. I'm currently a master's student at the University of Birmingham, where I'm studying international security and terrorism. Very topical, I know, unfortunately, but nevertheless important. I'm here in the UK as a student representative, for the lack of a better word, for Plymouth Rotary Club, based in Plymouth, Minnesota. I myself am not from Plymouth. I'm from Maple Grove, which is 10 minutes north, but nevertheless, I'm very, very grateful for Plymouth Rotary's support of my education. And I want to, just again, express my gratitude for their continued support and their continued assistance throughout this process. But anyway, so the presentation, the purpose of my presentation is twofold. Number one, to give you just a general overview of my journey thus far, both in and outside of the UK, and what I plan to do following my education here. As well as some fun plans that I have for the summer that will, just to give you a sneak peek, we'll be taking part in Cambridge, which will be very interesting. I'm very excited for that. More to follow. And then also, as a way of giving thanks, expressing my gratitude to Plymouth Rotary again for supporting my education and helping me coordinate my life here. I wanted to give them the time for me to present some of the projects that they've been working on. Perhaps it becomes a source of inspiration if any of you are looking for additional projects to see what has been done, again, across the pond, the whole theme of Hands Across the Sea. And yeah, to just help strengthen that connection and that knowledge between Rotary clubs. So a little bit about me. I'm from Minnesota. For those of you who don't know where Minnesota is, we're all the way up north where the air gets mighty cold. -60, in fact, with the wind chill. So for those of you who are up for the intense cold weather pressures, feel free to come during our winter year. The beauty of Minnesota winters, though, is that they're very, very sunny. So that's like the bright thing. You're not like in the Northeast where you get the lake effect snow from the, from the Great Lakes here, where then it's all cloudy. Minnesota, Great Plains, sunny winters, cold, but sunny, which is important. Just to give you a more general sense of where in Minnesota I'm from. So if you see the small collection of highways here, I'm from within that small collection of highways, usually northwest, about 20 minutes outside of the Twin Cities. As I said earlier, in Maple Grove, Minnesota. Nice suburban town. We're very homey. More importantly, we have a lot of good breakfast places, which for me is very important because I'm a big breakfast guy. And partly because that's really the only food I can eat without any issue. Which is fine. I'm fine with living on pancakes for the rest of my life. So yeah, born and raised in Maple Grove, Minnesota, but spent a good portion of my life living abroad, specifically in Switzerland, and Brazil, mostly in Brazil. My Portuguese is a little iffy, unfortunately. Haven't had a lot of opportunity to practice. My French is even less fluent, but still working knowledge, still can kind of get around and survive. So I'm lucky I still at least have those skills. And I graduated high school 2018 from Sao Paulo, Brazil, which was a very fun experience. Did the International Baccalaureate program, which for those of you who are familiar with the IB program is a very intense adventure, but nevertheless preparing me for a good portion of my life later on, especially going into undergrad. Did my undergrad in sociology and terrorism studies, which was very illuminating and of course helped chart my interests going forward with being interested in extremism, terrorism, counterterrorism. As many of you know now, I'm currently pursuing my MA in international security and terrorism. Do my terrorism class now. Actually, it's very, very interesting. All my professors are very, very, very fun people. So it's been certainly a wonderful journey. In terms of what drew me to Birmingham, so the first thing I was actually hoping to do while I was here, because I connected with this organization prior to, was Connect Futures. Connect Futures is based actually in Birmingham. Their whole mission, as I've come to understand, is to help educate communities, specifically young people, about the dangers of hate and online extremist speech. Since unfortunately the online space is one of the ways a lot of these kids, young people, especially adolescents, get drawn into these groups, is through the online. So they play a very important role in doing kind of like outreaches to local schools across the UK to kind of make sure kids are building that information literacy to prevent them from going into these spaces. If you guys are looking for an interesting project, and if you guys are looking to kind of get involved on this side of the space in terms of building community resiliency, highly recommend reaching out to Connect Futures. They're local, which I am assuming makes life a lot more convenient if you were in the south of the country. But nevertheless, the other thing that drew me to Birmingham were two professors from the University of Birmingham, one from the history department and one from the department I'm in now. Both of whom did their fair share in convincing me that the University of Birmingham was the right place, given my research interests and given the work that I've seen them both do on the outside in terms of engaging with practitioners as to what this problem actually looks like, how is it manifesting, and what are some of the tools and cool research that all these organizations are doing. You will be included. While my initial plans to engage with Connect Futures have unfortunately fallen through, I've been very lucky enough to engage with folks in London, have some very productive conversations about what the threat space actually looks like and what are some of the tools and techniques that we can devise to actually have a positive impact going forward. And then I quickly mentioned earlier about Cambridge. So another opportunity that I've recently been afforded is I'll be attending the International Security and Intelligence Seminar in Cambridge this coming summer, specifically July and August, where it's part of what I believe is called the Cambridge Security Initiative, actually being held at Cambridge and sponsored by King's College. The whole premise of the program, as I've come to understand, is to bring students, practitioners, junior professionals into a like-minded space, do additional coursework, engage with practitioners who are well established in their field, as well as researchers who are well established in their field, to help bring them together, teach us, especially me as a junior professional, some additional tools and tricks of the trade on, when it comes to investigating cases of terrorism, how to better counterterrorism policy, as well as other issue areas. So cybersecurity, intelligence gathering, you name it. Now, in terms of the next steps, as you see on the slide, I do plan on pursuing a PhD in sociology in the US within the next year. In fact, I'll be submitting applications this coming fall, which is very, very exciting. Have my list picked out. I'm very happy with the list. Speaking of which, I've also started preparing for the standardized testing I need to do, which is coming up fast at the end of May. So I've been doing that on the side as well. Very daunting, but at the same time, very exciting that I'm already preparing for the next steps now. Got to get the master's degree done though first. Now, Alpha Kappa Delta is the International Sociology Honor Society. The reason why I have this up here is because their mission, which I think fits perfectly within Rotary's mission, as I've come to understand it, is to investigate humanity for the purpose of service. As I said, fits within Rotary's mission perfectly, given the importance of connecting with your community, with helping your local community, with building community resiliency, with building cross-national connections, as a means of bettering the world. In my case, this involves defending the public from the horrors of violent political extremism. Since I do study political extremism in school, I studied it in my undergrad, and I plan on continuing to study it well into the future as I continue on with my professional career. In terms of what I'm doing now in pursuit of this mission, so I'm currently working as a research associate with a team based in the US, across the US, that seeks to develop tools to help identify hate speech online, which is very interesting, been very educational, especially as a supplement as I go to school and then do this thing as well. And dissertations are coming up as it is dissertation season, so I will be investigating, again, looking at the incidence of extremist incidents in the US, specifically following 2020. So I'm looking forward to that project. Been working on it for the past 2 months and excited to crank it out over the summer and get it done. And ultimately, as stated, my end goal is to affect positive change in how we understand the problem set. It's continuously evolving, and the hard thing is that it's transnational, it's everywhere, it's online, it's offline, it's in video games, it's in Facebook, and tracking it has become extremely difficult. So the core, especially of as I grow in the space, is help not only understand it, but to help reduce it to something that policymakers can understand themselves, to help create more effective and more robust policies going forward. Because in my opinion, that's the ultimate goal, is to help build more robust structures to help contain this thing, to help prevent it from spreading any further than it already has. And yeah, as I said previously, you know, the core mission is ultimately to prevent violent extremism. A little bit about Plymouth Rotary. Again, the reason why I mentioned Plymouth Rotary only because, again, as a sign of gratitude for their continued support for my education, I wanted to give you guys some insights as to what they've done, what are some of the projects that they're currently doing or they're well known for. Again, as a way of just building that, you know, hands across the sea kind of knowledge. So one of the projects that they've put forward most, or is like one of their signature projects, called Heart Safe. Heart Safe is an initiative, again, as I've come to understand, it's coordinated through the Red Cross, where the whole idea is to help build knowledgeable citizens, especially young adults, adolescents, and really adults of all ages, to help build, you know, the local knowledge of some of the signs of, you know, heart failure, or what's called, hold on, if I can pronounce it correctly, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Building those skills, so teaching CPR, teaching people how to use a defibrillator, and of course, learning, you know, not only how to quickly access it, but how to coordinate with EMTs and medical professionals as they're en route to make sure that, you know, if someone does collapse, that you're able to save them on the spot, to help increase their chance of longevity and livelihood after whatever heart failure incident that they have. As you can see, to date, they've successfully trained, you know, little over 7,000 individuals, which from their original projections when they started is about roughly 10% of the population, which very impressive. They hold free classes through their own organizations for teens and adults of all ages, free of charge, simply going on the website and signing up. So that's been a very positive, one of the positive impacts that they've had on Plymouth specifically. In addition, they've also been offering high school scholarships every year since 1997. They're affiliated with an initiative called Scholarship America, better known as Dollars for Scholars. The affiliation allows recipients to have favored status with institutes of higher education, so universities, local colleges, who are also affiliated with the same program. And there are hundreds of institutes across the country where awards reach up to $200,000, which in the US is a big deal, especially given the price of higher education. Very important to give kids those opportunities to get access to those resources. In addition, they've also participated in Adopt a Highway project. If you ever travel around the US, you may see signs, Rotary signs about adopting a highway. Where pretty much some of the projects that entail around there is cleaning up the highway, the segments that they have adopted, you know, as part of taking care of the local community, taking care of the local environment. In addition, speaking of the environment, they've also made some investments in some of the local parks. So improving park facilities, improving park access. And on top of that, and again, as we're on the ecological topic, they have some international beddings as well. So they provide mosquito bed nets to communities in Africa, as well as provided numerous clean water projects to communities, impoverished communities in Honduras and Haiti that are fairly remote and don't necessarily have access to the same institutional measures that some of the more centralized communities in the cities do. Other than that, that's the extent of some of the work that they do. All very important, all very impactful. And that concludes my presentation.
Right, thank you, Javier.